which one are regional council? Passing around these cards. When you're done eating, go over the time limit. This one is to Maricela. How were your holidays? Yeah, they were great. Lots of food, plenty of presents. Did you have any last minute camera duties?
No, all the ones were fun.
They're very early on.
Nothing fun.
Okay, that's good. You should enjoy your day. Yeah. And what about Chris? What did you get for Christmas? Money, that's always nice.
Yeah.
No longer complain.
He doesn't like to buy her clothes.
Always one color, one style.
My husband bought me clothes and I'm like, what's going on here?
You would think we get it after 30 years.
Yeah.
My husband loves pulling five. He's like, he loves to go and just, I don't know, whether it's a shot glass or. I'm like, why do my ashtray? I'm like, what are you doing with all this stuff? Like, he loves to.
Souvenirs.
Tommy came to see me in my city hall office. He's looking around and says, like, like all this junk. 31 years ago. I got it. I'm thinking home next year.
Well, that's what that's gonna be my question, because I'm worried about that with my husband too. He has so much stuff. His office is full of like challenge coins. Just, there's so much stuff that he's collected.
But 2 foot high, that wide display cases for the junk.
Yeah.
And I got a box of them under my desk.
So he'll, by the time he retires, he's gonna be 40 years in law enforcement. So he just has so much stuff. I don't know what we're gonna do with it. So we don't have a place to put all that.
The push to speak button.
Mhm.
So you feel like you want to, but you can also just leave it on.
Mhm. Which we have plenty of that. I told him, I said, Randy, you have so much stuff that I think you're really gonna have to pare it down into like one box, so our kids know what's important to you and what you would like for them to say. Because right now it's too much.
The point now, the kids are just gonna go throw it away.
Mhm. Right, it's just too much. So I think we have to, I think he would be good if he kind of made a box that's just like, this is what's important to me.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everybody.
Hello from Riverside.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year's to you.
Waiting me to go get my cookie.
Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, January 4th, 2024. Prior to calling the meeting to order, I'd like to ask members who are calling in by phone to please identify themselves. Nobody? As a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely, but not at the location specified on the agenda, may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. Me, the regional council, is all called to order. Ask Larry McCollum to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much. Please join me as we salute the flag that represents our republic. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. We do have a quorum, right?
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum present in the meeting. Not here.
Present.
Physically present, not.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. We are holding this meeting in compliance with Brown Act rules relating to telephonic video conference meetings. SCAG offices are open to the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. Just a reminder to reduce background noise. Please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. I will now open the public comment period of the meeting. This is time for members of the public to offer comments for matters within SCAG's jurisdiction but not listed on the agenda. Have anybody wishing to make a public comment? Nope, I'll close the public comment period. Staff have received any written policy or public comments with a deadline at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, January 3rd.
Mr. President, we have received 2 public comments related to agenda item 5, RENA reform legislative action on the consent calendar. First one's from the BIA and the second one from the city of Huntington Beach.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on that item? Okay, public comment period is closed. Is there,
Mr. President, I just want to note that we do have a hand raised by Adam Wood.
oh, I'm sorry. Adam Wood, go ahead. Adam, go ahead.
Mr. Wood, you
Yeah.
appear to be on mute. There you go.
Sorry about that, guys. A little technical glitch. Adam Wood, BIA, thank you for the opportunity to comment. As noted, we submitted a letter, so I just wanted to highlight it real quick. More than anything, wanted to give a quick shout out to SCAG staff and thank Kevin Gilhooly for the outreach on its item 5, the RENA reform matter. A lot of hard work went into this, and we're really appreciative of everything they did. We do have one procedural, everything in there's fine. What we're concerned about a little bit is just a procedural question, and we're asking if the record could reflect that the legislative committee has the ability to review the language that is eventually considered for implementation. So a small technical item we just wanted to flag for you guys. Thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, sir. I will now close the public comment period for matters not listed on the agenda. Review and prioritize. Is any need to review and prioritize any agenda item? Okay. I'd like to remind everybody to unmute your phone before speaking to state your name during deliberations and whether you're making a motion or offering a second. Those who are joined by phone, please press *6 to mute and unmute your phone. Action item 1, REAP 2.0, Regional Utility Support Housing or Rush Funding Awards. Do I have any members of the public who wish to speak on item 1?
Mr. President, I do not see any raised hands,
Yeah,
nor do we have any
we
in the
have-
room.
Excuse me. Yeah, we have here Gil Reblar. We have one here from the El Centro SCAG office. Members of the public like to make a public comment regarding this item.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Sylvia Chavez with the city of Calipatria. Thank you for your consideration on this project. The Delta Street Pump Station project constructs necessary repairs, existing and future residential development. Please rest assured, it will all be channeled into making a significant difference in the lives of those we serve. On behalf of the city of Calipatria, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
And I do see a hand raised by member Maria Nava Frolic. She's an RC member.
Okay,
Is that the same one from Imperial Office, or is it set to a different location, correct?
I'm at a different location. So first of all, I want to recognize the SCAG Imperial Office, Mayor Sylvia Chavez, our Public Works Director, Mr. Edgar Self, and Laura Gutierrez, our City Manager. On behalf of the City of Calipatria, we are excited about the award that is recommended for today for $1.5 million for the City of Calipatria. This will represent a range of investments in utility infrastructure, planning, capital projects that support housing planning efforts and accelerate infill development. These utilities are necessary for accelerating the housing supply, choice, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing. And with that, I thank you in advance, and I want to recognize the Imperial County SCAG office, the regional SCAG staff, along with the ICTC staff. Thank you very much.
thank you. Are there any other comments?
No additional comments.
None? Oh, no. I'll call on our Executive Director, Comey, to introduce the item and give an overview of the REAP progress.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, Regional Council members. Happy New Year to you all. This item is the latest award in the work that we've been doing under the Regional Early Action Planning Program, which we call REAP for short. Before the presentation, I just wanted to add a little bit of context to what you're about to hear to give you an overall sense of the program. This happens to be the last program element in the REAP 2.0 program that we've been working on the last year. With REAP, SCAG supports work to align both transportation and housing development to achieve California's climate goals. Under the REAP 1 program, the REAP 1.0 program, we awarded $47 million to just over 100 projects across the region. Under the REAP 2 program, so far, we've suballocated $157 million throughout the region. And with today's award, that number will climb up to $192 million. All this work seeds investment in innovative finance, land use, and transportation strategies, which will all have benefits for our region as they come to fruition. So I just, again, want to thank the Regional Council because it has been under your auspices that we've been able to get these programs out. And before you today is the last of the programs to go out, the RUSH program. And so with that, I'm going to ask Mayan Johnson, our housing manager, to come forward and do the presentation. Mayan?
Thank you, Comey, and good afternoon, members of the Regional Council and President Brown. So as Comey mentioned, I'm Mayan Johnson, Housing Department Manager, and I'm pleased to present to you along with my colleague Jessica Reyes Juarez, who will be presenting on the nuts and bolts of the program. So the recommendation you have before you today, we presented this item at CEHD, and they supported the action to recommend that the Regional Council approve the RUSH funding awards as presented in the report. So the action for the Regional Council today is we recommend that the Regional Council approve the Regional Utilities Supporting Housing RUSH funding awards as presented in this report, and also authorized the SCAG Executive Director or his designee to execute all documents and actions conditions incident to effectuating the awards and resulting projects, including any revisions to the proposed scopes of work as needed for compliance with the REAP 2.0 program. A mouthful, but hopefully that's spelled out in your report. So to provide some more context, what COME provided, so our PATH program, the programs to accelerate transformative housing under the REAP 2.0 program, this allocates $88.8 million for housing-focused grants that also have 3 guiding goals as aligned with REAP 2.0. These are to accelerate infill development, promote affirmatively furthering fair housing, and also reduce vehicle miles traveled. And as you recall too, with our REAP 1 program that will be concluding this year, REAP 2.0 builds on those successes. So a lot of these programs are continuations of plans that we've already laid the foundation for under the REAP 1 program that's ongoing. So a quick recap of the other programs under the PATH program. We have the Housing Infill on Public and Private Land Pilot Program. That's about $8.8 million. That awarded 11 projects, and the Regional Council reviewed and approved those in October. The Notice of Funds Available for Lasting Affordability, NOFA, that's $45 million, and it's funding 14 projects. That was reviewed by this Regional Council and approved in November. So today's program, the Regional Utility Supporting Housing Program, its goal is to fund non-transportation utilities infrastructure improvements, both for planning and capital projects. So that's $35 million allocated to this program. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jessica, my colleague Jessica, who will go over the program itself and our recommendations for funding awards.
Thank you, Mayan. Good afternoon and Happy New Year to all. As mentioned, my name is Jessica Reyes Juarez. I'm an associate regional planner here, and I've been working with the team on rolling out some of the programs here. Before we jump into the recommendations, some background here on the RUSH program. It was open to SCAG cities, counties, tribal governments, and public agencies with a role in housing production. The program allocated $35 million to fund both capital and planning projects that implement basic utility infrastructure needed for housing. So that's water, wastewater, stormwater management, and electricity. The program is targeted around how both utilities can support housing production goals and how it can embed elements of resilience, adaptation, and sustainability. So the program itself was divided into 2 categories. Applicants could either apply to the planning projects category for infrastructure planning and assessing and supporting increased utility capacity for housing, or they could apply to the capital category for the implementation and construction work for those utilities. So that would be the dollars in the ground. And $5 million was allocated to the planning category with the hopes of funding at least 6 projects in the region. And the remaining $30 million was allocated to the capital projects category with the hopes of funding at least 3 projects in the region. Now the call for RUSH opened September 11th and it closed November 6th. And throughout the application period, we received a range of interest from across the SCAG region and held office hours with interested applicants. And we also held application workshops to go over the planning and capital applications. In total, we held over 50 one-on-one office hour sessions, which translated to meetings with 40 individual potential applicants. So in terms of what we received at the time of call closed, we received 6 applications for the planning projects category. Of that, 1 was deemed ineligible, so 5 proceeded to evaluation by an in-house SCAG evaluation team. And the team determined that all 5 of those projects met the core criteria of REAP 2.0 and of the RUSH pilot program. So all 5 are being recommended for funding for a total of about $2.7 million. And on the capital side, we received 12 applications. 0 were deemed ineligible, so all proceeded to evaluation, again, by the in-house SCAG evaluation team. And the team is recommending 7 of those projects for funding for a total of about $32.3 million. And it was noted in our guidelines that depending on interest in the program categories, we could shift funds from one category to another. So since the planning category was undersubscribed, we allocated those remaining funds into the capital category, which was oversubscribed. But in total, what you're seeing is a $35 million allocation for the Rush Pilot Program. Now, here's how the projects are shaping up in terms of project types. On the planning side, we're funding 3 projects that are focused on area-wide infrastructure studies to assess infrastructure needs and develop recommendations. We're also funding 2 projects that are more advanced in their planning and are looking to develop design drawings and construction drawings for the utilities. On the capital side, there are 2 projects that are focused on electric utilities for housing projects, such as line extensions and expanding electrical capacity. And there's also 1 project focused on water treatment investments and water supply. There are 2 projects focused on sewer and wastewater management. And finally 2 projects focused on stormwater management and flood control. And here we have a summary of the projects recommended by funding by project category and by rank. And across the 2 programs, we have projects represented from communities in Imperial County, LA County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and 1 tribal government. And we did not receive applications from communities in Orange County or Ventura County, which is one reason why you won't see those represented here. And again, this represents $35 million in both planning and capital projects to support the utility capacity needed for infill housing development to occur. And just as a quick touch point of where we are in the timelines, with the funding approval of the Rush funding awards today, this will allow our team to begin developing the MOU and the scopes to get these projects going. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we'll open it up to questions, and I'll invite Elizabeth Carvajal, our Deputy Director.
Any questions? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the presentation. I am the chair of the CEHD committee, and I did want to point out that we heard this presentation at our committee meeting earlier this morning, and we unanimously approved staff's recommendation for the award of the Rush funding recommendation. We also had a very nice public comment and representation. Multiple representatives of the Soboba Band of Luiseno Indians attended our meeting, spoke at public comment, expressed gratitude and thanks to SCAG staff for the recommendation for the Rush funding. And again, the CHD committee approved staff's recommendation unanimously. With regards to the individual applications, one of the applications that was not recommended was from the city of Norwalk, which is a city that I represent. Is it correct that SCAG staff has reached out to the applicants who were not recommended to give them a debrief and to give them suggestions and advice for future applications?
We provided applicants that were not successful with a notification and invited them to reach out to us to schedule debrief. So that's something that's available to everyone that applied that was not successful. We sent out those notifications in advance of the CEHD meeting so that folks are able to reach out to us to schedule debriefs. That's something that's certainly available to them.
Specifically, has that happened with the city of Norwalk?
We have not received any debrief requests to date.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Larry McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move item 1 and the consent calendar.
2, second.
First, let me ask if anybody wishes to pull any item from the consent calendar.
Supervisor Spiegel.
Spiegel. Mike, I can't hear you.
I'd like to pull item 5.
Pull item 5. Yeah.
Do we have item 5 discussed before we vote then?
Yeah, Lottie, go ahead.
I think we need to acknowledge, we did have two public comments. And I'm of interest of us visiting the BIA. I'm not, I think we can cover them both. But the BIA did make some good recommendations. It's just kind of inclusive rather than making major changes, adding some transparency issues. And I think that right now, this is such a controversial issue. I know we have Huntington Beach is one of the other comments. I don't know if anybody from Huntington Beach is on this call. I'm not sure exactly. It was done by a staff member. There's no member of the regional council. We have 86 members, so I don't know who all is there.
Yeah, I'm there. My name is Casey McKeon. I'm a city council member from Huntington Beach. So our staff put that letter together.
Okay.
In conjunction with me.
In the future, should probably have them put your name on it to be included,
No
so that.
Yeah.
So
I'll let them
anyway, with the BIA's comments, I think that there is some credibility to it, and I have interest in adding it as part of the authorized staff to develop draft legislative language, identify and obtain a legislative author. I mean, that was the big factor, is they want an author. And everything that goes to Sacramento in discussion usually has somebody who's going to have the backbone for it. So I just think that their verbiage is something I'd like to add.
Is Kevin here?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Kevin Gilhooly, manager of the legislation department. Through the president, I'm happy to respond to that question, Madam Supervisor. And today, the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee is making a recommendation to the Regional Council that we move forward with these two particular concepts as SCAG-sponsored legislation. As part of that, the committee's recommendation is that we move forward with SCAG staff and SCAG lobbyists to identify a legislator who'd be willing to sponsor, or excuse me, to commission draft legislation from the Office of Legislative Counsel. That's the team of attorneys in Sacramento who write all the draft legislative bills and updates. The deadline to submit those requests is January 19. And so the legislators must submit those requests to the Office of Legislative Counsel in order to move forward with draft legislative language. As part of the recommendation from the Legislative Committee, we're also asking for permission to actually introduce the legislation. And that's where the legislation, the draft legislation we've passed across either the Assembly or the Senate desk, and where it's stamped with a bill number such as AB 123 or AB 456, for example. The deadline for that is February 16. And then we're also asking for permission to include SCAG's name as a bill sponsor on any of the materials produced by the legislator's office. However, the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee has meetings in January and in February where that legislation would come back to the committee, where we would have met those deadlines, but we'd also have the opportunity for the committee to fully flesh out whether we've achieved the goal, whether there is an opportunity to improve the legislation, and how we can work to gain the support from our friends and from our colleagues, including the Building Industry Association, but others as well. And it would also be a centerpiece of our Sacramento Summit, which is scheduled for March.
And you will reach out and explain this in response to this?
To yes, and I've been in contact with Mr. Wood from the BIA, absolutely.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Solechi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to briefly add, we've had multiple discussions, not just this current year, but throughout the last couple of years and the different administrations. And we're just happy that the Ledge Committee is moving forward with the proposal that makes sense. Obviously, one of the things I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday on the EAC that we do, I think, very, 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 very good. Staff does their work to follow with different stakeholders and to make sure that we're going to introduce legislation, or at least introduce something that's going to make sense for us. We're not going to introduce something that's just one-sided, I can call it that for lack of a better term, and it's going to die by the time it gets to Sacramento. So it's just, I think, a very well thought out process to get some sort of conversation going at the state level to see how we could address this issue that we keep having at this with SCAG and other agencies. So I just want to show my support on behalf of the committee that we've done the homework, we've done the work. And I want to thank staff, of course, for all their good work that they've done. We had a very good presentation yesterday by Kevin. And so I'm just happy that we're moving forward with that. I just ask for an I support on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Wendy Buckland, followed by Alan Wapner.
Thank you. And I will keep it short because really the way that it's been summarized by the two former speakers is exactly my vision as a committee member on the legislative committee. And I think Kevin explained it very well, the process. I mean, it's on the public record. It's coming back. These things will come back to us. So I just want to give assurance to those that have sent in letters that that was the intent, and the fact that it wasn't stated exactly as such doesn't mean that that wasn't exactly how it was going to happen. So thank you so much. Appreciate the comment, and I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. President. As part of the actual approval, I would like to make sure that this item does come back, the actual language does come back to the committee. And I know Kevin's talking about that, but I think it's important we include it as part of our action that prior to being forwarded to our advocates, that the committee has an opportunity to actually review the actual draft language before it moves forward.
Thank you. Mayor Patricia? Last name's not up there.
Dawson.
Dawson?
I thank you. So I'm the chair of the legislative committee, and I will assure Supervisor Spiegel as well as some of the other commenters, all those comments were indeed discussed and taken in, and we are committed to full transparency and committed to full review of any language that staff comes up with and approval, subject to approval by the committee. I can see Ms. Buckman's shaking her head. So with that, I would like to motion approval of this particular agenda item that's been pulled from consent.
Bucknam, second. And I do agree with Mr. Wapner that we can, if you would feel more comfortable, Mr. Wapner, I'm comfortable with that language being part of a motion, that it would come back to the committee if Mayor Dawson is in agreement. I wasn't sure if that's what you were intending in your comment, but I'd be comfortable with that being specifically called out.
That was what I was. I'm
happy to include it.
That was what I intended. I appreciate you adding that to the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, if I may, let me just try and set the record clear here for everybody prior to the regional council's vote. So what I've heard is essentially a friendly amendment from Regional Council Member Wapner, which has been acceded to by Ms. Bucknam. And so the motion on the consent calendar and item 1 will include that friendly amendment without objection. Everybody okay with that? I see a bunch of nodding heads. Thank you very much.
I accept the friendly amendment to my
Thank you,
motion.
Mr. McCallum. The maker of the motion accepts a friendly amendment, so we are good. I would also like to indulge the committee, Mr. President, if I could, to add a clarification on a separate item on the consent calendar. That is item 3, which are proposed revisions to the Regional Council Policy Manual. There was some potential confusion with respect to 2 amendments that had been put forward for the committee's consideration. They are to Section 5 or Roman numeral V of the policy manual. There are 2 separate proposed amendments. They are included as 2 separate attachments. So attachment 1 is the first part of the proposed amendment. Attachment 2 is the second. And then the following amendments are to other sections of the RC policy manual. Just in case any member of the committee had any confusion about that, I wanted to point that out. With that, I think that we are ready to take the vote with a comment by Vice President.
We have a
President.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. So if I may just make a quick comment. Yesterday, we had a very similar discussion to what we've just heard here today in the executive committee. And then after that discussion, it did pass unanimously. I do want to mention also that this is one of those items. We are not asking for money. We're not asking for anything like that. We're asking for obstacles to be removed to us addressing the housing crisis. And so with that, ends my comment, and thank you.
For clarification, can you please repeat what the language of the friendly amendment?
Mr. President, if I may, yes, it is that the item come back to the LCMC once legislation and once the process has started, that it does indeed come back to the LCMC for further information and or review. The language itself of the proposed legislation, there are two proposed pieces of legislation.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to confirm the motion was made by Larry McCallum and seconded by Solache.
Yes.
Thank you. Cindy Allen.
Aye.
Valeria Mezcua. Adela Brades Stadler. Constantine Anthony. Elizabeth Becerra.
Aye.
Gary Boyer.
Yes.
Drew Boyles.
Yes.
Art Brown.
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam.
Aye.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Yes.
Rick Dennison. Rick Dennison. John Dumitru.
Yes.
Keith Ike.
Yes.
Margaret Finley.
Yes.
Claudia Frometa.
Aye.
Marshall Goodman.
Aye.
Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Mark Henderson.
Aye.
Laura Hernandez.
Yes.
Mike Judge.
Yes.
Joe Kalmick.
Yes.
Trish Kelly.
Yes.
Kathleen Kelly.
Yes.
Tammy Kim. Tammy Kim. Linda Krupa.
Yes.
Carlos Leon. Carlos Leon. Patricia Locke Dawson. Thank you, noted.
Aye.
Thank you. Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Clint Lorimore.
Aye.
Ken Mann.
Yes.
Steve Manos.
Yes.
Ray Marquez.
Yes.
Andrew Maciel.
Yes.
Larry McCallan.
Yes.
Casey McKeon.
Yes.
Lauren Meister.
Yes.
Dennis Michael. Dennis Michael. Maria Nava Frolic.
Yes.
Frank Navarro.
Yes.
Oscar Ortiz.
Yes.
Luis Blancarte.
Yes.
Nithya Raman. Gil Rebollar.
Yes.
Rocky Rhodes.
Yes.
Celeste Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ali Saleh.
Saleh, yes.
Tim Sandoval.
Yes.
Andrew Sorega. Zach Schwank.
Yes.
David Shapiro.
Yes.
Marty Siminoff.
Yes.
Jose Luis Solache.
Yes.
Karen Spiegel.
Yes.
Donald Wagner.
Aye.
Alan Wapner.
Yes.
Jeff Wood. Frank Yokoyama.
Yes.
Mr. President, the motion for item 1 in the consent calendar
I believe I
passes.
was skipped. This is Sue Saro with City of Long Beach on the conference line.
Councilmember Sarr, I was informed that you were at a location that is not correct on the agenda.
I'm sorry, who had informed you that it's not correct?
We can go ahead and take your vote now and list
Okay.
it. And if it's once we confirm the address, if it's not correct, then we will remove that vote, but we will list you as yes in
All right.
favor of the consent in number 1.
Thank you.
This is Margaret Clark, and I'm a yes also.
Councilmember Clark, unfortunately, you are not at a listed location and there's not a quorum of the membership present in the room, so we cannot take your vote.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. President, the motion for item 1 passes with 49 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions, and that includes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Information items number 12, Presidential Priorities Panel, Clean Transportation Technology. Do I have any members of the public wish to speak on item 12? Okay, and I'll call on Comey, our Executive Director, to introduce the presenters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really excited to bring this item to you for a conversation this afternoon. Since 2020, California has implemented significant measures such as Governor Newsom's zero emission vehicle order, the Advanced Clean Cars 2 program, and the Advanced Clean Fleets program, all of which require a shift towards zero emission vehicles. On April 6, 2003, this regional council responded by adopting the Clean Transportation Technology Policy, which formalized our commitment to support the development, the commercialization and deployment of a zero-emission transportation system and supporting elements with an emphasis on technology neutrality. Now, oftentimes when we say technology neutrality, people kind of confuse that when and then in the same breath say EVs. In fact, what we're saying is both battery electric technology and fuel cell technology, which would be hydrogen. So we're looking at all of those options that are zero emission. That's where the technology neutrality comes in. Aligning with this policy, the EAC strategic work plan includes a presidential priority on clean transportation as a key area for regional collaboration this fiscal year. SCAG has made significant progress on this presidential priority over time, and this includes the completion and ongoing development of several major projects that we've been working on, such as the Clean Technology Compendium, the Electric Vehicle Charging Station Study, the Last Mile Freight Program, and the Southern California Zero Emission Truck Infrastructure Study. Each of these projects play a significant role in advancing clean technology initiatives in our region. So today's discussion, we have invited 3 representatives whose organizations are leading the clean energy transition in the region to provide their perspectives on the challenges and opportunities we face in achieving California's ambitious clean energy targets. Our guest speakers are Stephen Collins. Mr. Collins is the Senior Manager for Strategic Planning at the Southern California Edison and he will present on the energy landscape needed to achieve California's 2045 net zero emissions goals. We also have with us Carrie Schindler, and Ms. Schindler is the Deputy Executive Director of the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, and she will share insights into her agency's proactive role in leading the clean energy transition. And finally, we also will have joining us remotely Angelina Galiteva, the CEO of the Alliance for Renewable Clean Hydrogen Energy Systems, otherwise known as ARCHES, and she will talk about the California Hydrogen Hub Initiative. Mr. President, if it's okay, I will have each presenter do a 10-minute presentation and maybe take 1 or 2 questions in the interest of time. And I'll have some, with time permitting, I'll have some concluding thoughts. So with that, we'll start with Mr. Collins.
Good afternoon, Regional Council. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Stephen Collins from Southern California Edison, and I look forward to sharing with you what our analysis shows is required for California to reach its decarbonization goals by 2045. We published a paper in September last year called Countdown to 2045, and this paper is an update to a seminal paper that we published in 2019 called Pathway 2045, which was one of the first studies that shows what will be required for an economy-wide transition to a decarbonized California. As we updated this paper last year, our findings shine a light on many of the actions that will need to be taken here in California and in Southern California, especially in order to achieve those goals. One of the big findings is that the pace of electrification, this is electric vehicles as well as building electrification for heating, for hot water, the pace for electrification will need to increase, and the total amount of zero emission appliances and vehicles that we'll have in California in 2045 will be even higher than we had previously anticipated. In order to supply the clean electricity that's required for those appliances to be zero emissions, the build out of clean generation in California will also need to increase. More solar, more wind, new technologies, including offshore wind. And finally, the grid that connects that clean energy generation to these use cases that drive our economy will need to expand as well. So transmission is the high voltage, high power electrical infrastructure that moves electricity long distances across the state and interstate. And distribution is the lower voltage electrical infrastructure that's used to distribute electricity throughout neighborhoods and cities. This analysis shows what our company believes is the most feasible and the most cost-effective way for California to achieve its goals and to support all of the economic development that's projected to take place throughout the state over the next 21 years now. I'd like to share a word on why we wrote the paper again. I said that we published an analysis of what it would be required back in 2019, and we went through all the steps again, and I would say we did them even better in 2023. But that's in part because a lot of important things have changed between 2019 and today. There's a state goal to achieve carbon neutrality, which requires an 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. There is also, as was mentioned, a lot of other constructive policy that's changing the landscape of how this region and how the state will develop. The governor's zero emission vehicle order, the Advanced Clean Cars 2, and Advanced Clean Fleet rules from the California Air Resources Board all push electric vehicle and zero emission vehicle adoption to higher levels. Similarly, the air quality management districts throughout the state are talking about contemplating or even putting forward rules or proposed rules to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, but also the air quality pollution associated with the buildings in our state. And those zero emission appliances, your furnaces and your hot water heaters, are another big driver for how the energy system in California will be changing. But it's not just a policy set of drivers that have changed over the last 4 years. We've really seen the market change as well. And many of you, if you are looking at your neighbors' cars, you're seeing it too. EV sales, they're taking off in California. Last year, 1 in 4 new cars sold was an electric vehicle. That's a huge increase from even 2019, when it was only 6% of new cars being sold. And we anticipate that to go even higher and higher as we approach 100% new cars sold being zero emission by 2035. There's also growing momentum for emerging technologies. A lot of venture investments, a lot of startups are bringing new technologies to the fore that are making this vision a lot more possible. And finally, especially from the federal level, there's been a huge infusion of government funding with the Inflation Reduction Act and the IIJA that are helping to catalyze this momentum. So we really are seeing a lot of tailwinds that are pushing the state in this direction, and we wanted to fully account for those in the updated analysis. Now I'm going to walk through the findings. The findings are in several different areas, and then I'll tie it all together at the end for what this means. The first finding is how much electricity will be consumed in California in 2045. With all of the additional electric vehicles and with all of the economic growth and development, with the increase in the population, with more data centers, what is going to happen in California in terms of electricity demand? And what we're seeing in our latest analysis is that we expect that to almost double over the next 20 years. Specifically, we're looking at around an 80% increase when you put all factors together from the total amount of electricity that was used in 2022. That's a massive transformation that we're getting ready for. The biggest 2 drivers for that are zero emission vehicles, electric vehicles, especially in the light and the medium duty sectors, and about a 50-50 split of battery electric heavy duty vehicles like trucks and hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. Trucks, buses, those are the heavy duty vehicles. And then building electrification is the second biggest driver for this change. So the adoption of electrified appliances for space and water heating. In aggregate, to provide the clean energy that all of those end use cases will require, the state's supply of electricity will have to increase dramatically. And at the same time, the nature of the resources that produce that electricity will have to change. So we did a cost optimization and a reliability optimization to estimate what the best mix for California will be at that time. And the results are here on the slide in the bar chart labeled Countdown to 2045. A few quick things that might be interesting is the scale of solar development in the state. This is the yellow color in the bar on the right. The scale of solar development is almost on par with the total clean energy, the total energy resources in the state today. And that's just one type in 2045. There is going to be a much larger role for wind, both onshore and offshore. And we're starting to see this, and we expect much more of it over the next 20 years, a role for batteries, large scale, grid scale batteries that help store intermittent renewable energy so that it's available when it's most needed. So a lot of additional batteries to be installed. And we see a continued role for the gas generating fleet in the state to support reliability in the long term. That's the black bar at the very bottom. Now let's talk about the grid. At Southern California Edison, this is our bread and butter. The transmission, which I explained, and the distribution. The big story for both of them is massive increases. With all of the new appliances and vehicles and economic growth, increasing the demand for electricity, with all of the new clean generation that we just discussed, connecting that all together will be a major effort for California. In transmission, this comes from CAISO, the California Independent System Operator. They expect that the pace for new projects will need to be 4 times higher going forward than it has been historically. There's a massive increase in the amount of projects, the speed and the scale that will be required to achieve this goal. For distribution, which would be through each of the local communities, we anticipate that by the second half of the next 20 years, we may need to increase the pace of new projects to add additional capacity by somewhere between 7 or up to even 10 times what we've been doing historically. This is things like circuits, which can be overhead or underground, and substations, or expanding existing substations to add capacity, such as larger transformers. This is something that's extremely important to our company. It's something that we're getting ready for, because what we're doing by expanding the grid is we're enabling this transition, and we're enabling that regional economic development. We filed a general rate case with the Public Utilities Commission last year, which spells out exactly how we intend to make these investments in 2025 through 2028 to be able to prepare the state and to prepare the economy for this type of change. This isn't a very important slide here. This is affordability. I'm very proud of this analysis. I think it really drives the point home that although this is something that was calculated to achieve the state's greenhouse gas goals, we wanted to understand what will it cost. The total investment required, I had it on the executive summary slide, it's $370 billion in capital investments across the state, across the next 20 years. However, for the average consumer, and the data shown here is for the average Southern California Edison residential electricity customer, we expect them to see a tremendous savings in terms of their total energy expense. So when you consider how much each average household spends today on electricity, on natural gas, and on gasoline at the pump, that's about $7,000 per year. While customers will spend more on their electric bill going into the future, both because they'll be using more electricity for their appliances and for their car, and because the investment required to deliver all that electricity will raise the rates, the increase in electricity spending will be more than offset by the decrease in spend on fossil fuels, which, as we all know, are already quite expensive. And you can see it's the single largest portion of a Southern California household energy budget today. So in conclusion, achieving the net zero goals and the economic growth that we have planned as we get there will be a tremendous task. It will require planning, it will require innovation, and a lot of coordination. We're focused on building out the grid and doing it rapidly, doing it reliably, doing it affordably. And we think that's going to require reforms in planning and permitting to be able to do things faster, investment in new types of generation, like the wind and other types of clean, firm generation. And finally, the commercialization of some new types of technology that are just on the forefront today. For example, hydrogen-based technologies, which I'm sure you'll hear from next. Edison International, the parent company of Southern California Edison, we're committed to helping California and helping the Southern California region to achieve this goal. And we look forward to, we thank everyone for being such good collaborators in making this a reality for California. So with that, I will take questions.
Supervisor?
So you talked about $370 trillion in investments. That's just across California?
370 billion, yes.
Oh, billion.
Yeah.
I put a T instead of, I'm going,
Trillion would
okay,
be a
where are
lot.
you going to get it? Big difference. Getting older, my ears are less. And you say an investment, but I do know that quite a bit falls back on the households. I mean, perfect example is right now, we're all tiered at different times so we can do our laundry and do all that fun stuff. Okay, so we got to stay up late to do it or get up early before we go to work. My kids are screaming at me, but with that being said, I'm having a hard time saying it's not going to fall on that we're going to save all this money. Is this like down the road when it's all in? Or is this going to have a burden on the individual households as we go?
It's a very good question, Supervisor. Thank you. The affordability of the clean energy transition is front of mind for us. It's front of mind for everybody who's focused on these issues. Our analysis shows that the average household will save that money, even though the expense for electricity will go up. And it's because of the offset for reducing the expense for gasoline. So the single biggest benefit to any household would be replacing a combustion vehicle with an electric vehicle. That's where you save the most because you have the gasoline expense going away. And to do that equitably so that those burdens are not borne inequitably amongst households in California, it's really important that access to those electric vehicles is supported through different types of programs. Not only the vehicles, for example, we have a used electric vehicle rebate program because used electric vehicles tend to be lower cost than new electric vehicles, but also the access to charging infrastructure, making sure that there are places to plug in those vehicles in all communities. Because while over time, we expect that savings to grow on average, on a household by household basis, it's really about being able to access the newer and more efficient technologies that'll help them to save that money despite
And
the
that's a key. That was part of my next question on back on the individual. And that is the cost, like batteries. We don't ever seem to talk about that. You know, you say, get an electric vehicle, you save money, but then you hear people saying, how am I going to pay for a new battery? You know, those kind of things. So is there really that cost savings? I'm being skeptical.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not necessarily.
I know it's not your field as the batteries. I know
the
that.
best position to talk about battery lifetime, but what we're seeing is as the vehicles are transitioning, the secondary market for used electric vehicles is becoming more robust. And I think I'll say personally, I think it's uncommon that vehicles are having expensive battery replacements. I think they tend to find with the decade or so of electric vehicles that we now have on the road that they're all running and it's other elements of the vehicle that are causing them to wear out. It's not the expensive battery.
Hopefully I'll be around in 2045.
Okay, let's cut it off there. Larry and then Lucy Dunn, then we'll go to the next speaker.
If I understand your presentation correctly, to meet the increased demand, you're going to rely on generation strictly from wind and solar and battery storage. Is that correct?
That's not quite correct. To reach the electricity demand that we anticipate for 2045 and to make sure that it's being met reliably 24/7, 365, we anticipate the largest portion to come from solar and from wind, for batteries to grow significantly to support that. But we also see a role, I believe we have 19 gigawatts of capacity forecast for natural gas, the existing natural gas fossil fuel generators that we use today, but perhaps with technology like carbon capture and sequestration that can clean up the exhaust gas. But that's a very important resource in terms of maintaining the reliability because that is a generator that can be dispatched. It can be called upon when it's needed. And we also have another 8 gigawatts. I didn't mention this, but we have another 8 gigawatts of what we call clean firm resources, which is an area that could be met by technologies such as hydrogen, or if small modular nuclear reactors were to return to the state, or enhanced geothermal. There's a variety of different clean energy resources that could play that role, but they're absolutely necessary to complement the variability of wind and solar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lucy Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am fascinated by solar from both professional but also personal use, having just I'm working right now on installing a solar system. The new PUC rules have actually made it harder to put rooftop solar on the millions and millions of homes that exist in California. So much easier to do it in other states. And it's also declining. I think one of the statistics I just saw is that it declined by the solar industry declined by almost 40% last year and is expected to decline another 25% in 24 to 25 because of the new PUC rules for net billing versus net metering. And also that schools and farms, they can't recoup the cost of this on their buildings. Can you talk a little bit about this when we're depending on so much solar that California, unlike other states, makes it so difficult to install solar? Whereas Nevada, it's a piece of cake. Arizona, it's a piece of cake, and they're having far more successes there. Any thoughts on that one?
Sure, it's a very good question. I'd be happy to speak to it. The first important distinction is to understand the difference between rooftop solar and utility scale solar. Utility scale is much more cost effective than rooftop because you get an economy of scale. However, we see California increasing both rooftop and utility scale solar. The chart that I showed, that's utility scale generation, including utility scale solar. But our study, if you're able to read it, it shows actually a doubling in rooftop solar from what we have today, and a 10x increase in behind the meter energy storage, which is increasingly something that's paired with solar installations to help be able to use that rooftop solar at the times when it's most valuable. So that's the first distinction. And we see there being a need for growth in both domains in California. Now, specifically when it comes to rooftop solar, what's been happening with the Public Utilities Commission is changes to how homeowners typically who install this rooftop solar are compensated. And it has been changed primarily to address a cost shift, which is inequitable, where the benefits of the rooftop solar aren't quite as high as the repayment that's offered to those customers. And the margin has to be covered by everyone else who doesn't have solar. So that would be the motivation for making the change. And it's driving a much more equitable system for energy costs in California, but it's also making the payback period for rooftop solar longer in California. It still has a positive payback over the life of the system, but it doesn't pay itself back 2 or 3 times over the life of the system. And that's, I think, has had an effect on slowing the installation of new rooftop solar, which is
the trade-off then is a more equitable system, but then less development of rooftop solar in the state. And what I'm confused about is why other states don't see this as California sees it.
It's a good question. I'm not sure I can speak to it.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now go on to Carrie Schindler.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Oh, thank you. Couldn't hear.
I didn't have it on.
There it goes. Okay. Good afternoon, President Brown, Regional Council Comey. Thank you for having me today. I'm Carrie Schindler. I'm with San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. It's no secret in the San Bernardino Valley, we struggle with air quality issues. We have these beautiful mountains, just west of here, and everything gets trapped there. So it's been years we have been working at SBCTA on how can we improve air quality with a focus on transportation. Today, I'm going to touch on 3 areas we've been working on. For the longest, we've been working on trucks, but more recently, our focus has pivoted and include buses and passenger rail. So I'll start with passenger rail. Up here on the screen, you can see a zero emission multiple unit, what we call the ZEMU. So a handful of years ago, we were embarking on extending Metrolink 9 miles from San Bernardino to Redlands, broaden out the system. Through the environmental process, a smaller vehicle, passenger vehicle, was identified. Right up there, looks much more like a light rail vehicle. And in the middle is a power pack, which the existing models were Tier 4 diesel engines, and they powered electric motors at the wheels. So when we cleared environmental and we started moving towards actual implementation of the project, we started looking at how can we transform this vehicle. And we were able to ultimately secure a grant from the state of California, Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Improvement Grant, to support our effort. And our focus, as you can see on there, was really by, we're trying to use existing infrastructure and minimize the residual impacts of trying to introduce a new vehicle. So this vehicle can run on the existing Metrolink tracks. It does need a different fueling system. And it required going through a very deliberate process with the Federal Railroad Administration, which is the agency that regulates Metrolink or other passenger rail services. So our partners, we have very broad spectrum of partners, Metrolink, obviously, because the vehicle will run on their system or within their operating system on our tracks. The FRA, as I mentioned, AQMD was an early partner doing peer reviews on our studies. And Stadler is the vehicle manufacturer, and we were supported by multiple consultants. So this is the Metrolink system up here. As you can see in front of you, the dotted lines off to the right of the screen is the extension I talked about to Redlands. That's been in service for over a year now, and it's running with 3 of the diesel multiple unit trains. And they're actually doing very well. They have very high reliability. And so at SBCTA, we're in partnership with Metro and Metrolink studying deploying the zero emission multiple units beyond San Bernardino to LA Union Station. They are smaller vehicles, so you need to look at passenger loading. You need to look at level boarding. How do people get on and off the trains easily, as well as fueling. So how did we end up? We ended up with hydrogen battery hybrid system, replacing the Tier 4 engines that were acting as generators. So very early on, we started studying this in 2018. We had to hone in on what are the main parameters by which we're studying this, and then how do we rate them, and how do we get to a decision that we feel confident we can put in front of our board. So cost, we're always, how do we sustain the operation of the system? How do we afford the capital? Again, I mentioned we wanted to run on the existing infrastructure. Environmental considerations in certain sections in our county, they don't want overhead catenary. We do have freight running on the system, so we need to be cognizant of that. Operations. So how do we scale it? How do we make it reliable? One of the main things was if we were just looking at the 9 mile system, battery would have been probably the predominant way to move forward. But as soon as you start trying to deploy it out further, how do you charge the train in the system if you're not going to build a costly catenary system or you have conflicts with freight? And so stopping at the stations, the trains stop for at most 2 minutes. It wasn't enough time for that large transfer of energy to occur to recharge the batteries, which is what ultimately led us into recommending the hydrogen battery hybrid approach. This is a matrix I put up a lot to just We were very open. I would just share that we didn't start thinking it would be one or another. We tried to be as open as possible and went through a very diligent screening process. And again, this was back in 2018, and ultimately the board made the decision to go with the hydrogen battery hybrid in 2019. So fast forward, we completed the Redlands Passenger Rail project, went into service about a year ago. So we were developing the ZEMU while we were building the infrastructure. So we were literally building a maintenance facility and needed to think about how do we modify that? What's appropriate to put in a change order versus what do we do as an add-on project? And we went through a lot of effort. We did find that if we extended that power pack, that central unit of the train by 6 feet, we could increase the hydrogen capacity 100%. And so we went in the direction of increasing the vehicle size, but then you have to go back and check, how does it fit in the maintenance facility? How does it line up on platforms? All those types of things. Another early decision in the process was to provide 2 ports for fueling the vehicle. That has turned out to be an extremely important early decision to make sure we could fuel not only from both sides, but fuel on both sides at the same time so we can get a higher fueling rate in a lower amount of time. So this is our maintenance facility. It's built, it's operational, and we're now modifying it a year after it went operational to incorporate hydrogen elements. Overall, it's not too much. Different fire suppression system, increased ventilation system, and we actually had to increase our fire pump because it was just on the verge of being okay where we were previously, but we've added demands to it. This is what it looks like on the inside, and these are the diesel multiple units, and the hydrogen train will look almost exactly like that, just a little bit longer. This is a quick project schedule. Like I mentioned, we started in 2018. Our board made the decision on which direction to go in 2019, and then we entered the contract with Stadler to get the vehicle developed. Simultaneously, we had to work on our fueling contract, like fueling supply, as well as the retrofits to the maintenance facility. At this point, the vehicle is built. It's been running in Pueblo, Colorado for a handful of months, going through testing. There's a test track out there. FRA has been fantastic to work with. We thought that would be our big challenge when we started this. We actually submitted what are called letters of concurrence to them last month. So that is the step to get them to basically say you're okay to go into revenue service, which we're targeting for the summer. And I just can't stress enough what good partners they have been. We really thought it would be our battle, but we haven't experienced that all. What we have experienced is a challenge in entering contracts with hydrogen fueling infrastructure companies and hydrogen fuel suppliers. I think it's the convergence of the public sector with the private sector. They don't like our indemnity requirements. They don't like our insurance requirements. And at this point, they're not on the hook to enter contracts like that with us. So while we started out with a request for information that went out, and we had very good response, I think 6 responses, we have now gone through 3 companies we're trying to enter a contract with at this point. So that's where the challenge has been, and our bus operators are experiencing the same challenge. I will mention that OCTA has done a great job. They have a great facility, and we've learned a lot from what they built and deployed. So we're in testing on the vehicle now. That's a picture of Pueblo, Colorado, where the test track is. It's in the middle of nowhere. They test all kinds of trains out there. And then we did unveil, it's called the Flirt H2. We call it the ZEMU at APTA in September. And people were actually able to ride it. So pivoting to our bus operations, with the mandate from the state to transition to clean vehicles by whatever the specified deadline is, depending on if you're a large or small operator, we immediately worked with our board and pivoted to how do we pump the necessary funding into the operators to support that effort. So we do have $200 million that's programmed in the next 7 years for our bus operators. Our bus operators operate in the valley, they operate in the mountains, and way out in the desert. So it's a combination of technology meeting certain demands. And so the mountains is particularly challenging in our region due to the steep slopes and the freezing temperatures. A couple other things that we did is we pivoted. We have the West Valley Connector project. It's a 19-mile bus rapid transit system that will run from the Metrolink station along the Riverside line, the Pomona downtown station to the Ontario International Airport, up through the Holt Boulevard corridor in Ontario and up to the Rancho Cucamonga station. That was environmentally cleared using CNG buses. We went ahead and went through the process to revalidate our environmental. It took a little time. We had to actually do work to move from CNG to zero emission buses. And it took a little more time than we had liked, but we did it. And so that'll be our first 100% zero emission BRT system in our county. We did, there's the buses out there, 40-foot buses versus smaller versus 60-foot. So we are going with the 40-foot smaller buses because they were more reliable on the zero emission side, but we did need a third door because they're center runner stations. So you get into all these, nuances with it. And then of course, Omnitrans is having to retrofit their existing maintenance facility to support the charging of those vehicles. Victor Valley Transit Authority up in the high desert has been an early adopter of hydrogen into their system, and they're getting ready to break ground on their hydrogen fueling facility adjacent to their headquarters and maintenance yard. And it's set to be completed in the next couple of years. And there's some photos for you to look at of our West Valley Connector center running stations, and then the layout for the hydrogen fueling station. The VVTA hydrogen fueling station will support 60 buses. And then it also has a nozzle, or I'm not sure what, an area that's dedicated to private vehicle fueling as well. So switching to our clean truck initiative. So we started our clean truck.
Oh boy, I fucking hate niggers. You fucking nigger, and you yourself nigger, 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 nigger.
We need to be able to be sure that they are connected electronically.
So just clarification, even if we had quorum present, we can't. No, okay, we don't have.
He's planning on leaving.
Oh, you need to write? So they have to. Right.
Okay. If everybody will please take your seat again, we'll get started.
If I could make just a quick.
Yes.
Could I too? That was discussed.
Okay, thank you everyone for your patience as we worked that unfortunate circumstance out. For those of you who are participating remotely, you will note that you are on mute. We've got a global mute going on. That is just out of an abundance of caution. But if you do want to ask a question or raise a point, you can simply raise your hand using the raise hand function on Zoom, or I believe it's *9 if you're on the phone. The clerk will note that for the president and you will be recognized in due course. So thank you all for your patience. Mr. President, you can call us back to order at your convenience.
The meeting is now back to order. Please go on with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So just to wrap it up, the next area of discussion for myself for the presentation was clean trucks. So we covered rail, passenger rail, buses, now clean trucks. So this is where SBCTA really focused our early efforts. Back in 2011, we started looking at trucks. It is the area that could have the biggest potential impact for our residents and for those that live with and travel and work within our county. So we started, we do have a toolkit that we worked on with Metro and RCTC, Riverside County Transportation Commission, on how do we build healthy communities and healthy economies together, given the logistics industry that has grown so vastly within the IE. So we started looking, of course, at trucks. So 2011, we were able to work with the Department of Energy and the CEC under our Council of Governments effort to procure through a demonstration project, natural gas trucks. Now that's not the topic anymore, right? But they were put into service and they were well received. I think the primary thought process there, what people were looking at is what would the learning curve be to transition from diesel to something else, and how comparable would they perform from the user's perspective? The person driving the truck or expecting the truck to get someplace in a certain time. So overall, I would say it was a success. The feedback was positive. We even had interest from companies such as the 99-cent store and Whole Foods and how CNG trucks might work. But again, technology has changed quickly over the last 10 or so years. And so now we've moved on to talking about electric trucks or hydrogen powered trucks. So in 2017, we did another demonstration project. This one was with BNSF and focused on rail yards and moving the containers around within the rail yards. So a couple things is they did find them pretty comparable. They were impressed by that initial power that we've all learned EVs have, as well as how quiet they are. That's something else to think about. Like sometimes our heavy duty vehicles get very loud. So having quiet vehicles is a benefit, especially in a more industrial area. And then just to note, they did have air conditioning, which the original trucks did not. So it was a huge upgrade for the drivers. And BNSF did end up purchasing some of those trucks coming out of that demonstration project. I will note, as we heard earlier from Stephen, the primary challenge with that 2017 demonstration project was getting the chargers in place with the energy they needed. So while the trucks got developed and everything was ready to go, the chargers were lagging, and it came to the point where we almost lost the grant, like basically defaulted on it because we weren't going to have enough time to do the demonstration portion of the project. Luckily, we didn't end up there, but it's something to keep in mind. So where we are now, oh, that's the 2011 trucks up there. And where we are now is we've taken a very strong approach to how do we take our traditional road widening projects and how do we incorporate some of the CAPDI initiatives that are out there, or some of these efforts that, some of them are mandated, right? But some of them are the right things to do as well. So in 2022, our board took action to incorporate into 2 of our large road widening projects, funding for incentive funding for clean truck fueling and charging stations. And so We went ahead and moved forward with that, incorporated into our SB1 Transit Enhanced Corridor grant applications, and we're successful. So we have 3 sites. One is EV charging in San Bernardino, and it's actually under construction, and we're contributing 5 million to that. I think it will support 100 trucks, and that's tied to the I-10 Express Lane project, contract 2. And then we also have a hydrogen fueling site that's under development. It hasn't started construction yet. These are being done by private entities, so we're not delivering them. We're providing incentive funding through our grants. And so that one in Colton and one up in Hesperia off the 395 are under development now. I will also add that our board took action to take some of the toll revenue, the excess toll revenue off the I-10 contract 2 segment and put that into clean truck incentives. So we are looking for multiple ways to help spur the development of that technology and deployment of it within our region. And then last but not least, I'll just touch on, we are working with SCAG on the zero emission truck infrastructure study, and we're excited to see that develop and look at strategies for siting more charging and hydrogen fueling sites for clean trucks. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any member present have a question? No. Anything online? No? Oh, Oscar, go ahead.
For the hydrogen supply, I know you were saying you were having trouble with the contracts. Have you seen issues with supply?
So we have not. At Pueblo, where the train is being tested, there has been some supply challenges. The vehicle manufacturer has been able to overcome them, but it also is in the middle of nowhere, so it's a little more challenging. But it's definitely something you have to be thinking about until it's more fully deployed and readily available. You have to think about, where am I going to get it? What is my backup plan?
Yeah.
We were able to meet with Walmart, Amazon, because they've transitioned, many of their facilities have transitioned from electric forklifts in the large warehouses to hydrogen powered forklifts. It's a much smaller footprint for them. They get much more capacity, right? They don't have to swap out batteries as much, and they get a lot of floor space back. And they actually Walmart was telling us they stage containers of fuel in strategic locations just to make sure if their primary source goes down, they have a backup.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just wondering, but back home we had an issue with Sunline. They were having issues with the hydrogen gas, but they had some of the old electric and natural gas buses that they put online for a little while.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Raised hand by Kathleen Kelly.
Kathleen Kelly, go ahead.
Yes, just to follow up on Oscar's question. Do any of your fueling stations have an electrolyzer on site? Because we have this conundrum to deal with. If we are importing hydrogen and the electrolysis is happening in another state, that hydrogen may be generated with dirty energy. So we feel good at the end point of use. We're reducing the carbon footprint here. But from a global perspective, if we're not controlling where the electrolysis happens, we might be fooling ourselves. So what is your experience with that question?
So I understand what you're saying. I think it is it's two, it's the way it's generated, it's also where it's generated, and how do you get it to where it's needed. And I think that we need to start really focusing on that. I'm very interested to hear Arch's presentation next, because I think that's the biggest application we've seen in our state of how do we get deployment done. But we need to be thinking about how it's generated, where it's generated, and how do we get it from where it's generated to the sources that are needed.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We're going to go on to Angelina Gottlieb on hydrogen systems. Thank you again very much.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Do we also see the presentation?
It's coming.
Let me
Okay,
know
it's
when
up.
we're ready. And thank you, Mr. President and regional council members. I'm very happy to join you virtually and present and hopefully answer some of the questions that we have heard raised right now by some of the participants and the members. And Carrie, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. San Bernardino is a terrific partner for Arches, and we look forward to working with you. So Arches is the Alliance for Renewable Clean Hydrogen Energy Systems, the so-called California Hydrogen Hub. And it was created about a year and a half ago to apply for the Hydrogen Hub initiative that the DOE has launched under the Infrastructure Hub. We had a combination and a vision of participants such as industry, higher education, all of the UCs together acting in a united front, the state support through GoBiz, labor unions again as a united front, and it is an unprecedented collaboration between labor and the UCs working together on the level of the Office of the President from the UCs and led by the trade unions in California as well. We have community participation, NGO participation, and industries. And it was created as a public-private partnership to create a sustainable statewide renewable clean hydrogen market and ecosystem in California and beyond. We're specifically focused on green hydrogen and creating hydrogen through electrolysis and some biomass at the request of the state. Arches utilizes renewable resources to produce hydrogen, which is solar and wind and hydro and geothermal, and we want to fully decarbonize the regional economy. I am also on the board of the California ISO, the Independent System Operator, and I know the mandate to reach carbon neutral by 2045 for the electricity sector is doable. In fact, we've reached 100% renewable energy on the grid at certain times already. The issue is how do we translate that into 24/7, 365 days a year, 24 hours of the day, every hour of every day, and also use that electricity to decarbonize hard to decarbonize sectors such as shipping, aviation, heavy-duty transportation, and heavy-duty industry. Arches prioritizes environmental justice, equity, economic leadership, workforce development, and the hydrogen market viability right from the get-go. So when we started working on the application and creating it, we wanted to have a system-wide approach and a statewide approach that was a matrix that could be deployed on a larger regional footprint, because DOE, apart from wanting the cost of hydrogen to be a $2 kilogram by the end of the project, they also would like to see an opportunity for the hubs to interact with each other nationally and regionally. And that's the concept that we had. We created a system approach that focuses on the feedstock for hydrogen, which is renewable electricity, and some biogenic woody biomass, for instance, that is used for fire mitigation, because we do have fire issues and we do have a lot of woody biomass that we could utilize to create hydrogen. And of course, utilizing wastewater, which is something that is important for our cities and for our economy as well. The electrolytic production uses renewable energy and electricity from the grid, which is increasingly decarbonized in California. We have a renewable portfolio standard that will get us to 100% green by 2045. And then we focused on the production and the distribution infrastructure being through pipelines. Hydrogen already, there are dedicated pipelines, specifically in Southern California in the Long Beach, LA areas that have been operational since 1970s. And they've operated safely and they're interconnected to the ports, which is a large off-taker for us as well. We wanted to correlate production and offtake in such a manner that storage that is required would be just minimal and buffering storage. And of course, we'd use fuel cell trucks to distribute liquid hydrogen where it is needed initially for the offtake as the pipelines are being built out. In terms of the offtake, the largest users that we see initially is the power sector, which would be fuel cells and turbines. And so the presentation that we saw from Stephen Collins with Southern California Edison meant stating that we would need some centralized power generation, which we do with the benefits that it provides for reliability for the grid powered by natural gas, but certainly those power stations can also be powered by hydrogen. And indeed, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, NCPA, the Northern California Power Authority, and SMUD are transitioning some of their centralized power generators to hydrogen operational as well. And the beauty of that is providing a flexibility that you can utilize a mix of natural gas and hydrogen, and they can transition to 100% hydrogen as the fuel becomes available and we create the market. The heavy-duty transportation sector, of course, is another off-taker, as you heard from Carrie's presentation for San Bernardino, especially heavy-duty trucks and buses, and ports. Ports are a big off-taker, not only for port equipment that is necessary there in terms of the cranes and the forklifts, which, again, we've heard from Amazon, Walmart, and others, are more efficient, but also shipping. The shipping corridors are going to be transitioning to hydrogen-based fuel as well. So we wanted to see what the ecosystem in California was for hydrogen as we were applying for the hydrogen hub and issued a solicitation for proposals. We received over 100 proposals back to ARCHES, of which we selected 39 to be a part of the proposal to the DOE. And we have about 32 projects that are secondary projects, tier 2 projects that can come in and swap out the tier 1 projects we proposed to the DOE, and they can continue to build out the viable system for California. The drivers for selecting the projects enables a sustainable hydrogen economy in the ARCHES ecosystem, realizes co-funding and market viability, provides realistic and ready for delivery goals, and provides very strong community benefits. Now, our proposal, and one of the reasons it was selected, was that we were able to match the DOE funding that we received 1 to 10. So they have awarded us $1.2 billion in funding. We asked for 1.25. They shaved us 50 million, but that's okay. We can still make the projects happen. And for that, we have been able to raise public and private funding to match it at 1 to 10. So our hydrogen hub is essentially between 10 and $11 billion. So as we said, we wanted to have a system-wide approach to ensure that we have production and offtake correlated and co-located in a statewide basis, and to ensure that we don't have the anxiety of not having enough hydrogen, but that we have the production that is necessary to meet the demands, whether they're transit agencies or ports or power plants. And as you can see on the state map, that's where the production and the offtake sites are. A lot of the offtake is in Southern and Northern California as the energy centers, and the production in the central part of California as well. And as you can see in 2023, we're starting at 6,800 metric tons per year for demand in hydrogen that we're utilizing right now in industries, in refineries, and in other sectors. And this is mostly for the transportation sector. As we transition to 2030 and 2032, the production is going to rise from 6,800 to 190,000 metric tons per year of hydrogen. And the offtake is going to be a little bit more diversified in terms of ports and the power sector and the transportation sector. And by the time we reach 2045, which is the net zero goal for California, we're going to be producing 17 million metric tons per year, or 46,000 metric tons per day. So the scale is going to be pretty fast, and the offtake, again, the largest sector is envisioned to be transportation. Again, fuel cell vehicles are also electric vehicles. They're zero emission, and they just provide another opportunity for us to decarbonize the harder to decarbonize sectors. Our commitment to communities is very strong. This is one of the drivers that actually differentiated us from the other applicants as well. The DOE actually received 78 proposals from throughout the country. They down selected 39 to provide full proposals, which we did. Ours was, I believe, 1,500 pages. It was a very intense proposal. From that, they down selected 14 in-person interviews, of which we were one as well. And from those 14 interviews, they selected 7 hubs. So California is one of the 7 hubs selected nationally for the DOE. We are the largest. And not to, brag too much, but they have said time and again that this is the blueprint for how a hydrogen hub should be developed, and they look forward to working with us. And so far, it's been going really well in terms of the negotiations for them. So community benefits, again, huge driver for us as well as the DOE. Arches is committed to partnering with communities in the development of our hydrogen ecosystem. We are, of course, focused on improved environmental health and quality of life, increased availability of high-quality, family-sustaining green jobs. As you know, labor is a strong partner in this initiative, and family-sustaining careers and jobs are very important. They have come out front with training programs and a dedicated section in terms of developing the workforce that is necessary to support the projects from the zip codes of where those projects are. And we've got hydrogen market aligned with California community needs, and of course with California's objectives of being carbon-free by 2045. And we actually walk the talk. We have a plan to invest $229 million in workforce development, an additional $150 million in direct community benefits in the areas surrounding projects. 1% of the project budget of every project that is a hydrogen project in Arches' ecosystem is dedicated to communities' health, to community benefits. So we're looking for communities to help determine the desired results and performance measures. Community benefits scorecard will be created together with the communities. We already have a community directed benefits plan that we issued late last year. Based on that, every project will have a dedicated community benefits plan developed in conjunction with the communities around the project itself, and labor. That community benefits plan will have the measured results and meet community needs, whatever they may be. Some of the communities have said they would like to have a water filtration system. Others have said would like to have a kindergarten. Others have said that they would like to have transportation systems for the communities developed for them as well. And as you can see, this kind of like Warhol painting also represents visually the Arches Hub sites that coincide with disadvantaged communities, that coincide with low-income communities, and that coincide with air pollution. What we were surprised to find together with the labs, because also the UCs, apart from being one of the largest research institutions in the world and most respected, also run 3 of DOE's labs. 2 of those labs are actually working on the Arches projects too, Lawrence Livermore and Lawrence Berkeley. And they ran the numbers on our projects to see carbon intensity and to see environmental benefits. So in terms of just doing the 39 projects alone in California, at their completion, they will be saving $2.95 billion in economic value in increased health and associated health cost savings per year. So technically the hub pays for itself in a few years. That is $3 billion in health savings that we will see. We are also going to see over 200,000 jobs created, fewer hospitalizations, fewer work lost days per year, and investment in community benefits and workforce development to the tune of $380 million. We have a structure to oversee the community benefits, which is very different in terms of others that have applied and hasn't actually been tested before. That's the independent community benefits monitoring team that will report directly to the board on the progress of community benefits compliance. And that they also oversee the $150 million in direct community benefit programs that are being executed, and they have enforcement mechanisms if things are not going right. We have a community benefit scorecard, which they will be using to assess success. We've got tribal communities participating as well, and we've got tribal projects in the program. And so community engagement, on the one hand, of course, is ensuring that we have environmental benefits and we have clean air benefits, directly displacing diesel and directly working in the ports and other areas that are hard to decarbonize with just the renewables and electricity economy further. And the other side of community benefits, of course, is workforce and making sure that there are good, high-quality jobs and opportunities for careers in those areas. And we are working closely with labor, the $229 million in workforce development, ensuring that we have programs that are aligned from high school to community colleges, to state schools, to the UCs, and ensuring that to the training centers with labor, and ensuring that we have a certification program that works seamlessly across all those levels of education, so that we have a pathway for young people, kids, at-risk youth, helmets to hard hats, the veterans, some of the anti-recidivism initiatives as well, winters, women in non-traditional industries as well, participating and having the access to the benefits of these programs as well. We, as I said, expect over 200,000 new clean, green, family supporting jobs created in California, and believe that this will be an environmental and an economic benefit for our state. We have secured the largest federal award that has ever been given to an energy program in California, so we're quite proud of having achieved that. And we look forward to actually realizing the projects, which apart from, and not to minimize the $1.2 billion from the DOE that has been awarded, we would like to see security in the system and in the programs for the private funding and the public funding to come in, which will really make the difference and ensure that we can successfully operationalize this $59 billion potential program for the state of California and for all of our cities to benefit. I live in Southern California. I have a vested interest in this being a successful program. And we want to make sure that we work with all of you to capture all the benefits that are available to our cities and communities. So the negotiation process has started with the DOE. This is the award negotiation map. They're actually coming to UC Irvine next week, where we will be negotiating further on the projects. We're actually going to visit the port projects in person. And they have asked to visit a transit agency as well, and some of the fueling stations that we will be building together to ensure that we have the infrastructure to deploy this hydrogen ecosystem for green renewable hydrogen statewide. We're in the negotiation process, hoping to move into phase one, which is detailed planning later this year, probably around April, with steel in the ground starting in 2023. This is a fast-paced project. Everything has to be built by 2030. It has to operate for 2 years by 2032 to get all the funding. So we're going to be looking to realize and build those projects on an expedited schedule. And so permitting will be important, and working with state and local government to ensure that we align not only on the federal requirements, but on the state ones as well, is going to be super important for us. And so CEQA and NEPA and everything else that that is entailed in permitting a project is something we'll be focused on in the next few years as well. So that's it in a nutshell. Lots of opportunities, and I look forward to your questions.
Do we have anybody here in the building? Questions? Cindy?
Hi, Angelita. This is Cindy Allen from Long Beach, and I am just absolutely excited to hear you today. I know that Arches represents an incredible, opportunity, not just for the region, but for the city of Long Beach, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, to advance local and regional clean hydrogen hub development goals. And I think it's absolutely imperative that we invest in hydrogen technologies. You already spoke a little bit about, the high-paying jobs, and I know this has come a long way since you and I first met. Do you have any? Can you speak a little bit on that? Do we have any idea on the number of high-paying jobs that this unprecedented collaboration will produce?
The presenter may still be on mute. If it's possible to ask AV to unmute her, that would be very much appreciated.
The name is Angelita Galiteva.
Yes. Yes, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I just got kicked out of the meeting for a few minutes. But Cindy, you were saying thank you so much, and I would be remiss not to say that Long Beach was the first city to support Arches, and that initiative was led by now Vice Mayor Cindy Allen, and we are incredibly grateful for that. And actually, the launch of Arches happened in Long Beach, and the Long Beach port, the Port of Long Beach, will be hosting DOE next week on one of the boats to showcase the hydrogen projects around the ports of LA and Long Beach, which is quite tremendous, and everyone's very excited. I cannot hear anything.
We have another question coming up.
Yeah, I have a question. There was a map that you showed that had the different hubs and there were areas shaded, and there were some parts of the state, it looked like maybe Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, that weren't included. They were just sort of whited out in that map. Do you have any relationship with some of those counties and areas that weren't in the map, or what relationship would you have in the future?
No, the relationship is there. There are projects in Ventura. I mean, this is not a detailed map. The projects, actually, all of the 56 projects that Arches is working on, 39 of them proposed to the DOE, and another 32 that are tier 2 projects that spread quite evenly throughout the state. There's quite a bit of production in Ventura as well, and we are looking forward to working. And of course, the University of Santa Barbara is involved. So the fact that it wasn't shown in detail on the map that I showed doesn't mean that there aren't projects, that there aren't fueling stations, and that there aren't relationships that are going to be built out throughout those areas. But the big focus is Southern California. Certainly, we're hoping to have the headquarters of Arches here in Irvine as well. And of course, Northern California with the Port of Oakland, and a lot of production in the Middle States as well.
Okay.
And the transit agencies, we have 14 transit agencies participating in Arches. There's tremendous interest in transit agencies. So the transit agencies are also spread out throughout the state. And certainly the fueling infrastructures as well.
Close out.
Who's that?
Oh, there's one more and then we'll probably close out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Supervisor.
Just real quick, thank you for the presentation. Can we get that sent to us?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Because it was very hard to follow without seeing your notes, but very good. Very fast talker, but good.
Mr. President, if I may just close this out. I know we're running short on time. And again, apologies for the incident earlier. It was bound to happen. We were hoping that we would catch it before it did, but we'll keep on the lookout so we don't have disruptions like that at the meeting. But this is one of the risks of remote connections that we have. And again, just apologies for that. And I know it's affected the length of time that we have for the presentations. But I just want to thank the presenters for taking their time to talk to us today. I think one of the things I'm hoping that we walk away with is the connective tissues of what we've been working on for the last couple of years in the area of clean technology, things that have come through the regional council in bits and pieces. I hope you can all see that all come together, and there's much more work to do in getting to our regional and climate goals. So again, just thank you again to the presenters, Stephen Collins, Carrie Schindler, and Angelina Galiteva. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now entertain, well, no, we just finished that. We'll now receive reports from the business representatives, the president, and executive director. Before we begin, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on those three items?
Mr. President, I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, I'll call on Lucy Dunn, regional council member or business representative. She'll have to be unmuted. Lucy Dunn needs to be unmuted.
We got it. Thank you, Mr.
Got it.
Chairman. In the interest of time, I'll be very, very brief. My report is just the last couple of pages of your packet agenda today. Please note on your calendar, looks like we've got another great agenda coming up for your GLUE Council. That's your business group of global land use and economics. January 29th at 10 a.m. We're going to be also diving down onto the hydrogen hub, some details onto the state budget deficit. We believe the governor is going to be coming out with a plan this week, so we'll be able to get into a little bit of that. Jeff Montahano, the CEO of the California Building or Southern California Building Industry Association, will be giving us an update on housing for 2024. And another full agenda items, including discussion of the business community support for Greenprint and Connect SoCal. One last little note, I gave a little update in my report on the Chapman economic forecast. And one of the most interesting comments came out that because the resale housing supply is so constrained right now. There's just not enough on the market. And the fact that mortgage interest rates are still very high. One of the new items for negotiation in family law cases, in divorce cases, is who gets to keep the low interest mortgage. So I share with that housing has gone down to the family law courts now. It's fascinating. Anyway, I close with that, Mr. Chairman, and again, because I know you still have some other agenda items.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome new Regional Council member Carlos Leon, and I'm Regional Council District 19. And I want to thank Ashley Aiken, who previously held the seat, for her service on the Regional Council. Additionally, thank you to Brian Goodell, OCT representative, for his service on the Regional Council. So happy to see the 500 attendance at the Regional Economic Summit. The regional briefing book was also handed out at that time and is available on the SCAG website. The elected briefings for Connect SoCal 2024. Gotta turn the page. SCAG hosted 15 elected official briefings in Imperial, Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ventura counties. 229 elected officials from city, county staff, and stakeholders participated. These briefings, SCAG leadership shared details of the draft Connect SoCal 2024, focusing on how to implement the plan's vision for a more resilient and equitable future. Briefings also include dialogue with questions and feedback on the draft plan. We have a call for community members or committee members. It's time of the year again, we kick off the annual process from leading up to General Assembly. The nominating committee will soon initiate its yearly process to review interested candidates for board officers. Interested parties should look for outcoming weeks for information on how to apply. Members interested in serving on the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee and the Nominating Committee should submit their names to the clerk no later than January 19th. We look forward to continuing supporting the development of high school and community college students interested in careers in local planning. I'm seeking interested members to serve on this year's scholarship committee. If you're interested, please contact the clerk's office or government affairs officer, Rachel Wagner, to submit your interest by January 19th. We expect to make the announcements on appointments at the next regional council meeting. Second Vice President Cindy Allen has also started the process to convene the General Assembly Host Committee. Thank you to those who accepted. More information will be coming soon. The first meeting will take place later this month. I'm proud to report that Executive Director Comey Asiji is one of 25 members appointed to the California State Transportation Agency's statewide transit task force. There are also representatives from Riverside County, Traffic Commission, LA Metro, Move LA, and UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies. First meeting was convened last month. The task force will be bi-monthly to develop policy recommendations for growing transit ridership, improving the transit rider experience, and expressing long-term operational needs. These recommendation report to the state legislature by October 21st, 2025. Because transit recovery is a priority for our region, we plan to share regular updates on this task force and opportunities to engage. The next regional council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 1st at 12 p.m. Comey, you're on next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be really quick. There's only one really announcement that I think I will take out of my remarks to present today. As of today, we are basically accepting project nominations for 3 federal programs: the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, as well as the Carbon Reduction Program. The combined budget for those 3 programs is $278 million. And the project nominations will go through each county commission, each county transportation commission, and they will coordinate with eligible entities in their counties to submit prioritized lists to SCAG, and will hopefully bring a prioritized list of those 3 programs to the regional council in June. I want to take the rest of my time to just announce a couple of personnel changes that we have. I want to take this moment to introduce Jeff Elder. Jeff is our newly appointed chief legal counsel for SCAG. Jeff came to us in July of 2021 as already a seasoned public agency attorney working as a deputy city attorney at the city of LA, with very strong background in procurement, contracts, and transportation, housing, and the things that we do here at SCAG. So it's really our privilege to have Jeff join our team at the executive team level. So I want to just introduce Jeff. You want to wave so people can see you, Jeff?
Hey, Jeff.
And then finally, we are going to be losing one of our valued members to retirement. That dreaded retirement is taking one of our valued members. Leighton Morgan has been at SCAG for the last 17 years, and he joined SCAG in January 29th of 2007 as procurement chief, and has held that position since. And he is now decided he's had enough and going to sail into the sunset. Leighton had worked before he came to SCAG at Metro, and spent 16 years with increasing responsibilities as a member of the LA Metro team, and came to us as a procurement chief. In the time that he's been with us, he's worked on, as you can imagine, thousands of contracts which amount to hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's led efforts to create a financial management system for tracking and managing contracts and procurement, as well as several process improvement opportunities along the way. He's worked on our revisions to the procurement manual 3 times. I guess you wouldn't have to do the 4th one, so that's why you're leaving. Leighton's well liked and is a very cheerful member of our team with a can-do spirit, and very helpful. And you have about 10 seconds, Leighton.
Thank you so much, Comey. Appreciate it. I was going to hunt that hacker down myself, because he's going to block me from being able to say goodbye. So I would like to thank, starting with the board. Good afternoon, board members. I'm sorry I didn't trying to rush through my speech here, but appreciate the sentiments from Comey, Darren, the executive team, and my boss, Cindy. Geraldo, who's behind me. I really have appreciated all that SCAG has done for me and my family. It's been a tremendous blessing through the years. And I just want to thank you all, let you know that I do really greatly appreciate the support that the board itself has been into getting us the resources that we need to do our jobs and do them well. Thank you so much again, and appreciate it.
Any future agenda items? Any announcements? We are adjourned. Thank you for your participation.